What is up, everybody? Welcome to another Sunday afternoon edition of MLB Crunch Time here on Roto Grinders. Happy to be with you, as usual, for another Sunday afternoon slate. We've got the three-man booth today. I, of course, am Justin Van Zuden, STL Cardinals 84. Got Mr. Tim Buell on one side. Tim, what's going on?
Yeah, not much, Justin. Definitely a loaded slate on this Sunday. A lot of different ways we can go with hitting and pitching, and a lot of tricky weather situations. I think we have to kind of navigate today.
Yeah, absolutely. The weather forecast looks a little bit shakier than what it did when I first got up and wrote the article this morning. So we'll definitely touch on that here in just a second. We've also got Taylor Smith involved here today with the show. TJ's out today, so hope TJ's enjoying his day off. But Taylor, what's going on?
Not much. Yeah, I just pulled up the weather too. I didn't realize that the Philly and the Mets game also got a downgrade. So yeah, I guess we'll see what shakes out, but it's still a little dicey at the moment.
Yeah, it does look a bit dicey. Of course, Roth isn't with us live on the weekends, but I can read off his forecast. And if he mentions anything on social media here leading up to lock, we'll be sure to pass along those updates. And it looks like Devin has put the forecast on the screen there, so you can see we've got yellow, orange in Boston, starting dry there with a line of storms moving in the middle of the game with a possibility of a late inning delay. And then orange-yellow in both Philly and in New York for the Marlins, Phillies, and the Astros, Mets, with basically scattered storms moving through. You get that a lot of times in these summer months. It gets hot, it gets humid, and storms can pop up. So I'm sure that makes forecasting the weather for the ball games a little bit more difficult at this time of year. But and they're all the Northeast games. So Boston, Philly, New York, those are the spots we've got to monitor. Seems like there's at least going to be some risk with those. I mean, thankfully, from a pitching perspective, really only one of the top pitchers is in those games. That would be Ranger Suarez in Philly. But Tim, how are you handling the forecast as far as how you're making your lineups right now?
Yeah, definitely keeping a close eye on maybe a Roth update on his personal Twitter account. It's pretty easy SP1 today with Garrett Crochet on the slate with his 9.5 K prop against the Rockies. So we don't have to worry about weather in that game. So I think that makes him the clear SP1. After that, though, it gets a little bit tricky on SP2. And like you said, Ranger Suarez, I think, would be a fantastic play, but I'm not going to deal with weather and him being 10,500 on DK. So probably going to go to one of these lower SP2 options that we can talk about as we move along on the show.
Yeah, definitely worth keeping an eye up for updates. I'll make sure I do that, and we'll pass that along. Of course, if you have questions throughout the show, the best way to get access and get your questions answered, we'll do that after we go through the positions. The best way to get your questions answered is in the Roto Grinders live stream chat Discord channel, and that is free. You just have to be a Roto Grinders member. You don't have to be a premium subscriber to get in there. So rotogrinders.com/Discord, and then you sign in there and get into the live stream chat channel, and we'll prioritize those questions as we get towards the latter stages of the show. We got about 40 minutes until lineup lock. Should be plenty of time to get through everything. We've got 9 games on the main slate today. So, yeah, let's talk pitching first. Tim kind of gave us a general overview of, Suarez being up there, but has some weather concerns. Crochet is probably the spot where everybody's going to land. But pretty decent options here today, even though we had a lot of aces yesterday, quite a few good options today as well. So, Taylor, what are you doing with your pitchers today?
Yeah, it's harder to find a way around Crochet with the weather impacting these other guys a little bit. You mentioned Suarez being the one in Philly. I think he's overpriced anyway. Like he's 10.5 on DK. He's the most expensive pitcher on the slate. He would be fine if the game's okay, but I'm not super psyched to pay up for him regardless of the weather. Freddie Peralta is the one that projects well next to Crochet. The issue is you're spending 20K a pitcher, which is not ideal, but it's also not a slate with a lot of obvious, amazing hitting to pay up for. So I do think it is perfectly fine to pair the two on DK. If you're going down, I think Taj Bradley and Kevin Gausman are fine. Bradley gets Washington, so the matchup's a bit better for him, but Washington is a super low strikeout offense. They also don't have a ton of power, though, and it is a pretty good park. Gausman gets a watered-down Yankee lineup that doesn't have Juan Soto. Obviously, don't have Stanton at the moment either, and no Rizzo. So Gausman hasn't been great. Still not super excited to pick on the Yankees with Judge in there, capable of ruining his day alone. But it kind of is what it is on this slate. I think you're getting enough of a discount with Gausman to where it's fine. You can make a case for Lance Lynn. I would prefer to not do that, but I get it just because he's cheap. And in theory, he's okay, but the numbers don't really align with what projection systems might think of him at this point of his career. And Hunter Green, I think, might emerge kind of as the chalky SP2. 8,500 facing the Cardinals. Park upgrade for him going into St. Louis. So nothing feels great beyond Crochet. I think you're really just building around him. But Peralta, Gausman, Green, and Bradley would be acceptable SP2s, I think.
All right, Tim, how are you navigating these pitching options here today?
Yeah, so I'm definitely prioritizing Crochet. I don't think there's any way getting around it. I don't care if he's over 55% owned, whatever he is. I'm playing him in both cash, single entry, large field, doesn't matter. I echo Taylor's stance on Kevin Gausman. That Yankees lineup is pretty ugly. So 7.8K for Gausman, I think, is a very, very strong play. And I don't think he's going to be as high owned as guys like Bradley and Hunter Green. So I think you're going to get off some ownership, and you might actually be getting a better raw point performance out of Gausman than you will from Bradley and Green. Having said that, Green has a tremendously long leash, which was really shown in his last start when he was literally vomiting on the mound, and they kept him in. And he was really struggling also. And I think he threw something like 95, 96 pitches. So, Green has a tremendous leash. He's got a decent matchup against the Cardinals. So I think he is firmly in play in all formats. Taj Bradley, I really like Taj Bradley today. I know the Nationals don't strike out much, but I think Bradley at 8,200, I think this is a really good spot for Bradley. So I'm really on board. Mixing and matching Gausman, Bradley, Green with Crochet. The pitchers lower than that in terms of salary, I don't really have that much interest. Like I'm not on board with Kyle Freeland. Like I'm not going to go like bargain shopping down low for pitching. So I'm really going to keep it just those four guys that I would mix and match. I'm actually really high on the Reds offense today, so I'm not on board with Lynn. I totally get it though. Like Lynn could escape this matchup, but I really like the lefties for the Reds in terms of offense.
Yeah, we're kind of all in the same boat with Lynn. I do worry about him today as well. As a Cardinals fan, let alone playing him in DFS. Don't think I'm in the Reds total in that game seems a little low to me compared to what I would have expected. The game total is about 7.5, and it's pretty even odds. So Reds are projected for around 3.75 runs if you do the math that way. That's sitting in our lineup HQ. That seems a little light. I know their offense isn't spectacular, but it's a good spot for them today. Not too much to add in terms of overall thoughts there. I think everyone would pretty much agree that Crochet is the overall SP1. We do have somebody asking in the Discord whether to play Crochet or Peralta in FanDuel Cash. Crochet is certainly the answer there. He's projected for almost 2 full strikeouts more And just that matchup against the Rockies is just tough to ignore. So, I mean, both are fine, but Crochet is certainly your cash game. SP1 today. Pretty much all three of us have agreed on that. So, other options that, maybe we just kind of glossed over, didn't mention, aren't that interesting. Garrett Cole, I'm not going there yet. He didn't have a single strikeout in his last start. And, he's built up the pitches a little bit. I think he got to like 72 his last time out. So maybe he gets to 80, 85 today. I could see some people arguing for him at the discount. That's more so of a FanDuel play, but I'm probably not going there. Like the other guys mentioned, you get to Green, you get to Bradley, maybe Gausman. I'm not quite as high on Gausman as the other guys, but those are probably the bottom three options. I don't think you want to go super bargain basement hunting today. So Taylor, anything else at pitcher before we move along?
No, I don't really think there's a lot of value once you get below the mid 7K range. So that's probably where I'm going to live. I'm not going to mess around with Freeland or any of that. So either paying all the way up, double barrel, or kind of one at the high end and one in the mid range.
Yeah, we did have somebody in the Discord asking about potentially using Matt Waldron. And that, I mean, when I first did a pass through today, I thought, he might get some interest as a SP2, but Boston is just so much better against righties. And they've got a 5-run team total today, and you've got a weather concern that I just don't think there's any reason to chance Waldron at the moment. So, all right. And JT Money with the usual question that I like asking you guys on Sundays, and then we'll move along to the bats here. But 3 lineups, 3 different pitchers in a FanDuel GPP. So Tim, if you're playing 3 lineups, you want to use 3 pitchers, who's your 3 choices?
Yeah, so definitely going to be going Garrett Crochet on one. Probably would go Hunter Green on another, and then I guess I would go Taj Bradley. Yeah, I'd go Bradley.
All right, Taylor, any changes to that if that's a question for you?
Yeah, Crochet, no brainer. I like Peralta for Green, just at the discount, even though he's not been great lately. Matchups, I think. And then Gausman at 9K flat, I think, is completely fine on FanDuel too.
All right, update from Roth on Twitter said he's just running a couple minutes behind his normal schedule. We'll have an update shortly. I know many of you are waiting, so we will pass that along once it hits the presses. All right, let's go ahead and switch over to bats and talk about some stacks today. Tim, I'll send this one to you first. What do you like for stacks today?
Yeah, so when I initially was researching the slate, I was all over the Padres, and then I got a little bit worried about this weather situation. I think there's going to be a lot of on and off delays, things of that nature, a lot of pop-up thunderstorms going on in the Mid-Atlantic and New England today. So as a single entry player and a cash game player, that brought down the Padres quite a bit. Now, that might bring down their ownership also in large field GPP. So if you're getting to if you're playing a few teams, the Padres, I think, are in a fantastic spot. Personally, I'm not going to go there just because I'm a little bit worried about the weather. Teams that I'm very, very high on would be the Rays going up against Patrick Corbin. They're extremely cheap. We don't have to worry about weather. Corbin is really, really not a good pitcher at all. So I'm very, very high on the Rays. I like the Royals quite a bit. I think they have a good mixture of high-end bats that we can get to and some value plays as well. So it's a very, very stackable team. So I'm very high on the Royals as well. Another team that I liked quite a bit was the Astros, but again, that's going to be another game where I'm a little bit worried about the weather. So it kind of depends on your risk tolerance level. So I kind of changed my mind up and went with the Brewers. I like the Brewers quite a bit. Going up against Hendricks, I think that's another team that could definitely break this slate. And then I think I was really surprised to see how low owned the Reds were. So for that reason, I'm very high on the Reds lefties. Lynn's been better against lefties this season, but traditionally he has struggled against lefties. So I'm very, very high on this Reds team, just because, not because they don't have very good team total, but just because the ownership. I think the ownership is going to be extremely low on the Reds, and I love their upside because if they get on base, they're going to steal so many bases against Lynn that just helps their ceiling. So I really like the Reds today.
Yeah, so I'm in one camp. I'm with him, and that's the Reds. I agree on that with stolen bases, though Contreras isn't catching today. Pajes is catching. That's actually a downgrade slightly for their stolen base potential, but you still know that they're going to run. And the lefties against Lynn, I'm totally on board with that approach. I'm less high on the Rays, but I like picking on Patrick Corbin as much as anybody. Steve Oj in the chat was actually asking, am I nuts in a single entry for trying to play Corbin against the Rays? That might be a little too cute. I know the bat sometimes likes Patrick Corbin. I don't like the Rays, but I'm not gonna use Corbin today. So that's buyer beware for sure. And then Lone Wolf DFS is asking, no mention of Severino as a value. So I know we've kind of moved on to bats now, but Severino's advanced metrics are a little worse than his surface numbers. He doesn't have a huge strikeout rate. He's probably okay, but there's not much of a ceiling there. So I think he's okay if you need somebody down there, but not somebody that you absolutely need to prioritize. All right, Taylor, what do you like for stacks today?
Yeah, I was actually going to name the Astros. Severino also has weather. Severino has weather to deal with. Generally less concerned about weather with bats. If the game gets kind of the green light to play bats, I'm fine with Houston. Like you said, his numbers under the hood are not great. Strikeouts are way down from where they were in his heyday. Houston is a very high contact lineup. Decent amount of power in there too, even with the kind of pitcher friendly park. I don't think Houston's a bad stack at all. I don't think Toronto is horrible either. No one's going to pick on Garrett Cole because it's Garrett Cole, but like you said, he had no strikeouts in his last start. His velocity is down. It's his third start of the season off the IL. Toronto is generally a source of frustration, but they've kind of perked up a little bit lately, and the park is okay enough for offense. I don't think picking on this version of Garrett Cole is the worst idea on a slate without a ton of clarity on offense. I guess the one team I feel good about would be the Rays, but it's the Rays, so I don't feel that great about it. It's just that it's Corbin. Some of their, like the barrel rates for some of these guys are decent enough. The surface stats are a little underwhelming for Arozarena and a few others, but the batted ball data indicates maybe they've been a little bit unlucky. Guys like Jose Siri actually have good numbers. Ahmed Rosario against lefties over the years has been fine too. So I get it. I'm not really comfortable with Rays chalk, but if I had to play one team that I felt decent about on this slate, it would probably be Tampa Bay, unfortunately.
All right. Rays will be very polarizing today for sure. Well, let's get into the position by position. But before we do that, just a reminder, there's never been a better time to sign up for Roto Grinders Premium. We've still got MLB, of course, golf heating up in the summer. We've got MMA. We've got WNBA covered for you now. And we've got option for whatever level you're looking for. You can get a 6-month combo subscription at an exclusive price of $469.99. That's a savings of $250 over buying 6 individual months of combo premium. You can also get your first month $40 off for a limited time. And if you want a test run before buying, you can dip your toes in the water with a 3-day pass at $19.99. You can check the links in the description for more info. And also, in case you've missed it, the Roto Grinders Premium subscribers can now use the DraftKings Pick 6 browser extension on Firefox to have all the premium props and pick'em projections overlaid on screen. So that helps you quickly and easily find the lines with the best value, and you can make expert picks all in one place. So that's a really cool extension. Check it out on Firefox. All right, let's start with catcher. And Taylor, I will go back to you. What do you think on catcher today?
Yeah, so Kansas City is one of the better offensives today. Sal Perez in the lineup, of course. You can also play him at first, and you can play Freddie Fermin at catcher if you want. A cheaper option there. William Contreras looks okay in a Brewers stack. There's not a lot to love here. I think Austin Wells is playable as a lefty against Gaussman in the Yankee lineup. Yainer Diaz, if you're stacking Houston, even if you're not, I think Yainer Diaz is probably one of the better hitting catchers in the league and on the slate by default. Kyle Higashioka in a Padres stack, if we get the green light on the Padres weather, is going to be somewhat popular, I would think, even though he's hitting 8th. And that's about it. There's not really much else to love a catcher on the slate.
Yeah, sometimes happens on Sundays where catchers get days off, and we have some of the top teams that are playing later afternoon games as well. Like Adley Rutschman's in the Sunday night game. Will Smith is on the later slate. So just not a whole lot of options at catcher today. Tim, anything you like in there?
Yeah, catcher's really, really ugly today. If you have all the money in the world, obviously Sal Perez would probably be my top option. Freddie Fermin is probably the cash game catcher in my opinion, but it's a really bad position today. So it's really an only in stacks position for me mostly.
Yeah, it's a little tough for sure. So roll with whoever's in your stack. No problem if you got the money to get up to Sal Perez or William Contreras, but is that the priority use of your salary on a slate where, there's high-end pitching and also you're going to want to spend at some other positions? It's debatable for sure. So, and also I didn't mention once we got through stacks, I was kind of harping on Tim for liking the Rays a little bit, but I'm going to be the one beating the drum on stacking the White Sox today. So by rule, I don't think I'm allowed to make fun of anybody else's picks on a day where I'm rolling out some White Sox stacks. Maybe about 50 people care. If you are watching the Rockies White Sox game without a vested DFS or sports betting interest, I question what the deal is. But there you go. Stack some White Sox today and watch Garrett Crochet. I guess Crochet pitching, you can make a case to watch the game even if you're just a fan. But all right, Tim, let's move to first base and I'll stick with you there.
Yeah, so I noticed that Justin and Christy both tagged my favorite first baseman. That's Hamir Candelario for the Reds, batting third against Lance Lynn. I've talked about how I like the lefties for the Reds quite a bit. He's currently both in my single entry team and in my cash game team. I think he's better served at first base to roster him at first, but that's clearly a personal decision. My next player that I like the most would probably be Yandy Diaz going up against Corbin, leading off. He's not like a huge power threat, but I think he's going to get on base. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for this Rays team as a whole. So I like Diaz quite a bit as well. I like Rhys Hoskins also. I've talked about the Brewers. I think they're a pretty strong play against Hendricks. Hendricks has had 2 good starts consecutively, but I don't think this is going to be a third for him. So I think the Brewers get to him pretty early and often. So I like that. I can't imagine that Vlad is going to get very much ownership, and he's absolutely red hot right now. I don't think many people are going to roster him against Garrett Cole. We currently have him under 5%. I think Vlad is a fantastic large field GPP play. Same thing with Pete Alonso, assuming that you're okay with that, some kind of weather risk. He's coming in under 4% owned right now. So I really like Pete Alonso, even if it's just like as a one-off against this Houston bullpen game.
So I'm beginning to wonder if Tim and Grant are working together, because yesterday Tim was telling me on the XM show that he was recommending a tater from Pete Alonso, and now he's talking about Pete Alonso again. And of course, Grant bets Pete Alonso to hit a homer pretty much twice a day. So I'm thinking that maybe Tim and Grant are receiving royalties for the Pete Alonso love. But it's become a fun little shtick on the Going Yard videos that Grant does. But in all seriousness, though, I think he's nobody's really going to play the Mets. I mean, the Mets are the hottest offense really in baseball right now. They're 16-5 over their last 21 games. It's tough to pick on matchups in like a bullpen game. So right now we're showing basically all of them at 11% ownership or less. So I think there's some interesting one-offs. Even Martinez, I think you can play as well. So Taylor, what do you like at first today?
Yeah, there's kind of a lot here that I think looks decent. I don't think anyone's going to play Vinny Pasquantino lefty-lefty against Logan Allen. Kansas City does look like one of the better teams on the slate. Ben Rice, I think, is going to be somewhat popular as a cheapie hitting second against Gausman for the Yankees. Only 2,400 on DK. I'm perfectly fine with him, even as a one-off. Josh Naylor, we haven't mentioned Cleveland really, but Seth Lugo has been kind of lucky so far this season. I don't hate a Guardian stack today. Josh Naylor hitting fourth. John Kinsey Noel is still the minimum on DK, first base, outfield eligible. Huge power bat, huge strikeout guy also, but you're playing for the power, obviously. Donovan Solano hitting fifth for the Padres. I think that weather, Roth upgraded the Padres weather to yellow, so feel better about that. Solano hitting fifth. Have no qualms with him at all. John Singleton, even a lefty against Severino. He's been weaker against lefties over the years, so cheap enough, hitting in the middle of the Houston lineup. I think he's fine. And even Cody Clemens, like we haven't really talked about the Phillies, but they do have a decent total against Yanni Chirinos. Their lineup is really watered down with their injuries, but it's cheaper as a result to stack them. I think Cody Clemens is okay enough. First and third eligible on DK.
All right. I will stick with you, Taylor, and we'll move to second base.
Let's see. Second base. It looks like David Hamilton might be somewhat popular as an option over here for the Red Sox against Waldron. You can also play Manuel Valdez at second at a cheap salary. Jake Cronenworth looks like one of the better bats on the slate to me on the other side of that game against Winkowski. Michael Garcia leading off the Royals, have no qualms with that. Bryson Stott is expensive, but he's one of the only expensive Phillies leading off for them. If that weather holds, I think the Phillies are interesting enough. And Jose Caballero, I think, should be pretty popular too as a part of the Tampa Bay stack, second and third base eligible. It's not a very deep position either, so you can always play someone like Altuve or Gleyber Torres if you want to stack the Yankees. He's cheap enough, but not too much to love overall.
Yeah, so Taylor mentioned that the Padres game got an upgrade, so Roth took that from yellow-orange to just yellow with an update that of all the East Coast games, this is the one I feel most optimistic about, but it's cautious optimism. The rain west of Boston may never get heavy enough to stop play, and if it does, which would be in the mid to late innings, I'm fairly confident that they can eventually finish. So that's the update. Both Philly and the Mets games, he still has that orange-yellow at the moment. All right, Tim, what do you like at second today?
Yeah, I just want to say one thing real quick. The Padres were going to be the highest owned team on the slate, and now that's going to be the case definitely now. So, guys like Jake Cronenworth, Solano, they're going to be very, very chalky. So definitely just be aware of that in your GPP builds. They're great for cash. Like Jake Cronenworth is definitely the cash game second baseman, in my opinion. My favorite GPP second baseman would be Jonathan India. I know that I want to tackle in with lefties, but India's just been so good lately, and I love this stack so much, so I'm not going to leave India off of it. I wanted to stat the Phillies today because they busted incredibly hard yesterday at very, very high ownership, and they were not going to get that same kind of ownership today. But there's too much weather. But if you want to take that risk, I have no issue people rostering Bryson Stott, who is too expensive in theory, but I don't think he's going to get much ownership given the fact that we have those weather concerns. So I do like getting to some Philly stacks if you're not worried about weather. Really, though, second base is not a very strong position on this slate. So really, I would just focus on guys in your stacks.
All right. Agree on the Padres, infield guys being strong plays today. We'll see where that ownership ends up landing. If you want some, pivots. At least there's probably not going to be a whole lot of mega chalk and maybe outside of them. So there's good enough options that you can pivot to other guys. But second base is the one position where that does maybe seem a little bit tough. Let's move to third. Tim, what do you like there?
Yeah, I believe I misspoke. I guess Solano's only first base eligible now. I used to be first base, third base, but he's only first base eligible now. But still, I think he's a pretty strong value play. Yeah, so
he's still eligible at about 6 positions on FanDuel. So.
Oh, he is? Okay. All right, good. Definitely a play on FanDuel then. Yeah, so third base, Manny Machado. As of right before 1 o'clock, he was projected for 16% ownership. That's really high. I know, again, they're in a tremendous spot. We're gonna like the Padres today in GPPs, but I think that ownership's just a little bit high for me. So if I'm not playing Candelario at first, I'm gonna play him at third. I like him quite a bit. It's definitely. I don't think a lot of people are going to be playing Cleveland bats. So I think Jose Ramirez at, under 4% ownership is a fantastic play. Same thing with Devers. I think, these guys are going to be so low owned and they're really not that much more expensive than Machado. And I think they're probably better plays. So I would fade Machado in large field and get up to one of these guys like J-Ram or Devers in a larger field setting. And then Isaac Paredes at 4,400, I think is fine in your raise stacks also.
All right, Taylor, what do you like at third today?
Yeah, you can play 3 Rays here, which is not ideal, but at least Rosario and Caballero, you can play at other positions also. Paredes looks good. I'll throw Alex Bregman into the mix. I'm hoping the Astros game will be good enough to play because I think they look really good today. In especially like a single entry, like I think you can pair them with this chalkier stack like Tampa Bay and feel okay about it. So Bregman looks good to me at a decent price, 4,200. Don't mind Michael Garcia. I think I mentioned him at second. You can also play him at third. I like the Devers call quite a bit. Mentioned Cody Clemens. Crazy thing about Machado is when you look at plate IQ for the numbers only this season, he's been like the Padres' worst hitter, which is kind of shocking to see, but he has come around a little bit of late and they are in a really good spot. So fine with it in a stack, but I agree with Tim that I probably wouldn't play him as a one-off, assuming significant ownership today.
All right, just a reminder, start getting your questions into the Discord, the live stream chat channel. We've got about 12 minutes left until lock. It'll take us maybe half of that to go through shortstop and outfield, and then we'll have 5 to 7 minutes for questions before we get up to locks. So Taylor, I will stick with you and let's move to shortstop.
Yeah, so there's a lot. It's not maybe as deep as it usually is, but still a lot to like. Trey Turner, if the Phillies game is okay to play, super pricey, but we know what he can do as far as speed and power. If you want to go cheaper, Rosario, you can play here. David Hamilton again. Taylor Wall's even cheaper than Rosario. Shouldn't be quite as popular, but we'll see. Bobby Witt Jr. Love the Royals against Logan Allen. Very homer prone. Bobby Witt, obviously the Royal you want to prioritize over everybody else. Ellie De La Cruz should get some love. He's not really projecting for a lot of ownership, though. Probably the top bat in that lineup against Lance Lynn, especially for the speed. Like Lindor against the Astros bullpen game, even as a one-off, perfectly fine to get to Lindor. And I guess Ha-Seong Kim is fine just because we've been on the Padres, but not one of the better options at shortstop, in my opinion.
All right, Tim, what do you like at short today?
Shortstop, Ellie's my favorite play on the entire slate, so I'm definitely going to go with Ellie De La Cruz in both cash and single entry. Obviously, Bobby Witt, probably, he's obviously a superstar, a great play. He's going to be fairly highly owned. If you want to go him, that's fine, but I'm going to go Ellie. Love going to Trey Turner in GPPs. After he burned everybody yesterday, love going back to him in large field settings. I like the Lindor call quite a bit at 4,900. I think that's a pretty good value. I I wouldn't go at shortstop. Probably wouldn't go anywhere below Willie Adames. I don't really want to pay down at this position in any format. So I think I would pretty much stop at Adames.
Yeah, definitely a pay up position for sure. All right, let's finish things off here with outfield. Tim, what do you got in the outfield today?
Yeah, so you got the obvious candidates like Aaron Judge. We've got that Boston game that's all of a sudden kind of opened up too. So we've got Jaron Duran, who's obviously great. The weather in New York's a little bit sketchy. I'd like to be able to play Jordan, but I'm not going to risk it with the weather. I noticed that you tagged Lewis Robert at 4,900. I think that's a really strong value on him and a really strong matchup. I just can't click it because I just don't want to play the White Sox. So I'm gonna go somebody who's also pretty ugly to click is Randy Arozarena in this Rays stack. So I don't know if I'm making the mistake or not, but he's definitely a fan. I think he's a great play today. Same thing with Jose Siri at 3,400. He is batting fifth, and he is, I think, way too cheap. So I love Siri today. I love Hunter Renfroe too, in that same price range. Like if you wanted to go kind of like cheaper, like live in the low fours or mid threes at outfield today, I don't really have a problem with that at all, because I don't think the high end outfield stuff is like must have players. Like I don't think you have to play obviously Judge or Duran or Bellinger or Kwan. I don't think these are must plays by any means. So if you want to kind of live in the value range at outfield, I have no problem with that.
All right, Taylor, what do you like in the outfield today?
Yeah, I'm going to be pretty invested in Gaussman, but I do think you can always stack against a guy like that who's been kind of mediocre relative to what he's been for years. So the Yankee outfield with Judge, Verdugo, and Trent Grisham, I think it's perfectly fine to stack them. They're not going to be as owned as they normally are, Judge in particular. I love the Jordan call, Arozarena by default. Jose Siri, good value in the Rays stack. John Kenzie Noel, I mentioned at first. You can also play him in the outfield. These Phillies lefties, David Dahlgren and Marsh, look good if the weather is good in that game. Yeah, it's not as good as it usually is either. Jackson Merrill, obviously, in your Padres stack. Someone called Bryce Johnson is sitting ninth. I don't know who that is, but he's cheap and a Padre, so decent enough value. And then, yeah, Wilyer Abreu, I guess, is an okay one-off, but don't love it.
All right, let's see. I think we've gone through all the positions. We got the weather update again, still a couple of orange-red games in the Northeast and just straight yellow there in Boston. So not going to be any magical answers on whether Philly and New York are okay for pitchers, but just be a cross your fingers mode if you're taking pitchers there. If you don't want the risk, then obviously you can pivot to a Peralta, a Crochet, a Hunter Green. Plenty of options there today. All right. Again, throw your questions in. Now we've got about 5 minutes left until lock, and we will roll through questions. And again, I will prioritize the ones in the live stream chat channel of the Discord. So FanDuel second base, Tim, Arias or Stott, ignoring weather concerns?
Ignoring weather, Stott.
All right. Let's see. I might ask both of you this one. So, because I know Tim likes Candelario and he also likes the Rays. So, Candelario and Paredes in a DK GPP stacking. Paredes would give him 5 Tampa, 3 Cincy, and Candelario would give him a 4-4. Go ahead, Tim. I'm going to make you choose.
Go the 5-3 route
with Paredes.
Yeah.
Taylor, you got a hot take on Paredes versus Candelario?
Yeah, I agree. I would just make it a 5-3. Tampa Bay going to be really popular, I think, but still the best spot on the slate, so I don't mind it.
JMVP says FanDuel's single entry is playing Mets too risky due to the weather. So, again, that kind of Just depends on everybody's risk tolerance. It's not like going to be a complete washout where it rains all day. But, on the same token, it could be a mid-game delay. Storm hangs over the park. You just don't know. So I am seemingly okay with it. It's not raining right now. I wouldn't probably go pitchers there, but if you are comfortable enough with some risk, I think the bats are fine. So with the caveat that I am not Roth, so I am just going off of the forecast there. All right, checking out the YouTube as well. We are caught up in the Discord. I see a couple people typing, so make sure you get those questions in. And TJ's not here today, so you haven't heard this yet, but make sure you hit the like button. I can't give you Spidey bombs from TJ because he's not here, but we'd still do appreciate if you hit that like button. Maybe Tim, you got any taters today?
Yeah, I actually do. I got one that I just took. It's Jake Cronenworth. I think he's plus 475 on DK. He's plus 450 on DK, but he's plus 520 on FanDuel. So if you have FanDuel, definitely like Cronenworth. I just bet Cronenworth plus 450 on DK.
All right, Beaner says, I know you guys like the lefties on Cincinnati. Thoughts on Fraley? I'll throw that one to Taylor. I'm not sure if Taylor likes the Cincinnati lefties as much as Tim and I do, so a good spot to give Taylor's thoughts there.
Yeah, I'd play him if you're going to play the Reds lefties. I think he's probably one of the better options. But yeah, I'm not personally on them today. But I see why you would be, because Lance Lynn's been a home run machine over the last few years. So Fraley seems fine in that stack to me.
So the Prince on YouTube said, who's your favorite stack to win it all? And Tim did reply with the Reds. But if you got a one single entry stack today, Taylor, who are you throwing that on there?
I would say Houston. Just be aware of the weather issues. I'm playing them as of now. I guess I'm going to be stuck with them because the game's about to start. But Roth says he has to lean. He would lean the game will eventually. That should be fine. I would take Houston.
Ooh, JD Davis scratched.
All right, so make sure you don't have JD Davis. At what time does that game start? Right at lock?
1:37, I think.
That's 2 extra minutes. If you 1:35 lock, 1:37 that game starts.
That lineup just got worse.
Yeah, they've got some.
That lineup, I don't even know who they're going to put in. I mean, that lineup's extremely watered down.
Lots of missing pieces for sure for the Yankees right now. I saw a tweet, and this is probably just engagement farming from FanDuel, so kudos to them because they sucked me in if it was. But FanDuel says in a tweet, should the Pirates go all in and trade for Garrett Crochet? I promise you, the Pirates don't need to trade for any starting pitching. If the Pirates are in a short playoff series, they've got enough starting pitching. The Pirates need some bats, maybe some bullpen arms. They certainly don't need Garrett Crochet with Skeens and Keller and Jones. And I mean, who's your number 4 at that point?
Now Soto's back in for the Yankees.
Well, so they scratched JD Davis and put in Soto. Yep. They probably didn't have anybody else.
So now Rice is batting 6th, and Soto's back in the 2 hole.
I thought NBA season was over, Tim.
Ownership.
Right.
Maybe and Matt Vierling has also been scratched, but that's a late game.
It's a later game.
So I get some Juan Soto at 0.5% ownership if he's confirmed in there. I haven't seen that yet, but clicking around too many things here, trying to make sure we're all set, and I think we are. But that'll be really interesting how that Yankees lineup shakes out. Nobody's gonna be playing.
According to the official New York Yankees Twitter, it is Soto in the 2 hole.
Yeah, probably nobody else. Fine, I'll go out there and play. All right, with that, NBA lock has hit, and we're all set for a Sunday. So we'll be back here tomorrow to start the new work week, a short holiday week. So hope you all enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Thanks to Tim and Taylor for joining me. Thanks to Devin for working hard and producing for us behind the scenes. I am Justin, and we'll catch you later, everybody.